hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Yeah. It might be 90 degrees and muggy outside. It might feel nothing like hockey season, but that does not stop Judd's Hockey Show from going forward at least once a week during this dead time of year, because nothing is ever truly dead when it comes to the world of sports. It is Judd, it is Jessi, Pierce, Bardown, Beauties, and of course NHL.com covers the Wild and AJ Fredrickson. And it is all brought to you by our friends at Parlor Bar. Been talking about the Parlor Bar on West 7th down from what is now going to be Grand Casino Arena for quite some time. Been talking about the one in the North Loop, but how about this one? Excelsior, new location. So if you are going to spend a day out in gorgeous Excelsior, let's say on the lake, make sure to make your stop, or at least one stop, Parlor Bar. The outstanding Parlor Burger, but the food is outstanding. The service is great. The cocktails are fantastic. So check them out in thriving Excelsior out in the western burbs. All right, kids, let's get right to it. So our friend Michael Russo from The Athletic went on the Daily Faceoff, or one of their podcasts, and was talking about Kirill Kaprizov. And now, I don't know how much we thought that this was just about a done deal, but there had been rumors that, okay, it's close to being done and that he might just get back and sign it because he's spent the year in Russia, which, of course, we all love that he goes to Russia. He gets to go home, and I hope he can get out, but I think he can. But anyway, long story short, Mike says that the latest word is that one, and this is not a surprise, he will become the highest paid winger in the National Hockey League. He will surpass the $14 million that Leon Draisaitl is scheduled to make per year, and that contract kicked in on July 1st. And then he also said, and this is probably a little bit more of the, oh, wow, that the sides are not close on a deal, that talks have, if not stalled, they've been put on a little bit of a break. You know, Kaprizov obviously has a year left on his contract. But, Jessi, we'll start with you. This might not have surprised you as much as I guess it did me, because you cover the team far closer than I do. But what was your reaction to Kirill Kaprizov, this contract not being as close to being done as we initially had maybe thought?
My first reaction was an audible sigh with a eye roll, because I'm like, of course we're going to go through this now. Because granted, part of me feels like it's just something to talk about now that we're toward the end of July, right? Like, we're running out of things to say. Marco Rossi, still a member of the Minnesota Wild. That's about it. There's not much else to talk about. Yes, you want this contract extension to get done. I think it's kind of funny to now hear that the sides are far apart, because we've been told all year long that no one can pay more than the Minnesota Wild. No one's going to offer more than the Minnesota Wild. And I think Kirill, though, it's a reminder to him, a stark reminder, to be looking out for himself. I can understand why he would want to consider a shorter term deal. This is a team that has not gotten out of the first round since 2015, as we have talked about at length. So, I mean, if he's looking at his future, does he want to really commit to 8 years and not knowing what that team is? It also, I think, signals how, if that is the fact that that's what keeping these two parties apart, as Mike Russo has reported, then it kind of makes you wonder again, what about this 5-year plan? How far away are the Minnesota Wild from being contenders? If you haven't convinced your superstar that you can build around him, that you're going to be able to get out of this first round slump, you're going to be able to be contenders. If he's not seeing it that way, there's an even larger problem, right? I still am very optimistic that it gets done. I'm still very optimistic that Kirill is going to be that superstar for the franchise for more than a couple seasons. But it makes you wonder what the discrepancy is. What is the biggest issue? Because I don't think it's the dollar amount. I really don't. I still hold very strong in the fact that Kirill does not strike me as the player that wants to be the highest paid winger in the National Hockey League, even if that's what this next contract extension turns out to be. I don't think for him that's it. I think it's a winning mentality, and it's him gambling on himself. Again, we've talked about, there's the concern about the injury. You'd think that would favor Minnesota in a respect, right? But again, Kirill, even in the offseason, I'm sure you guys have seen it floated around, Kirill remains to be one of the top 3 players in the National Hockey League from the national media, right? People are putting little memes together saying, oh, Kirill Kaprizov, he's way up here, and Kirill Kaprizov, grade A meat, all of that, which is great. So, I mean, it's that recognition is still around the league. There's still a taste for him. But yeah, it's funny because I told you guys, I think last week, I had a dream about Marco Rossi not being at training camp. Kirill Kaprizov also wasn't at training camp in my dream, but I pushed that aside. I didn't want to.
Wow.
I was like, there's no reason he wouldn't be
buried
at
the
training
lead.
camp. I
Well,
did.
no,
Because in
and-
my head, I was like,
and he's
that's
got a contract,
silly.
so he
He's
should
going to be at camp. Yes,
That shouldn't
but I
be a
just
problem.
think that's
Marco,
very funny.
You're probably right. That dream was spot on. AJ, what do you think?
I think one, saying they're not close is very relative too, because like you could take that as they're not close, they're not even on speaking terms, they can't stand being in the same room as each other. It's like divorce negotiations where they can't stand the thought of each other. But also, are they actively, like, they're not close, but they're in the room talking, they're throwing numbers back and forth, because I think that's two very different landmarks there. I hope it's the latter, because that means they're at least still in a good standing. They're still working. And like Jessi said, I think the money really isn't the issue. I think Bill Guerin, like, as much as they want to maybe try to keep it around that 14, if it's got to go to 15, I don't think it's going to be an issue for them at the end of the day. But it does perplex me a little bit as to like length and term, because that's where I think, as like Wild fans probably say, no, I want 8 years. That makes the most sense. I want Kirill Kaprizov here until he's 57 years old. But does Kirill want to be here till he's 57? There's been that, I guess, that kind of like, you pitched him what you're going to do, and here's the plan, and we have this 5-year plan, and we're in year 4, and you're a big facet of this plan. But now, you know, the free agency market didn't really go our way, and maybe now we're eyeing up next year, 2026. So does year 4 actually be like 4.5, and now it's a 6-year plan? He can only hear the sales pitch so long until he's like, I want to actually see stuff happen, because I have Zuki for 1 more year. After that, who knows what he's going to do? His contract's up. Is there going to be like that actual elite top scoring winger that's going to be opposite of me on that top line? Somebody else that can help Boldy on line number 2. Will I have my bona fide 1 center? Not that Joel Eriksson cannot be that, but he's hurt a lot, it seems like. And plus we have the Olympics, so you never know what's going to go happen there. I know Judd's still reeling from 4 nations this past season. So I'm interested to see the term, because I wouldn't be shocked if he kept it around that 4 or 5, but it's going to come down to what Bill Guerin does salesman wise, because I really don't think you can say, here's the actual goods. It's going to be, here's what we think the goods are going to be. I need you to buy in on that now and just put pen to paper.
Right. And in fairness to this entire discussion, you know, the free agent class right now for 2026 is bountiful, including McDavid. And talks have not started there too. So like the Oilers' stance is, hey, when you want to talk, we'll talk. They have not talked yet. So like this is not a situation where it's a trigger to he's gone for sure. But a couple of things. One is, I could see the money being a little bit of a discussion point or an issue based on this. And this is where I think Kirill, so I think in our world, we think, well, Kirill was hurt, and that's not good. And so he probably is going to take the 8 years because it's security. My guess is he might say, I don't think like that, you guys. And I'm not quite sure that this team is going to be a team that I can win with. For a star player, he's not that young too, because it took him some time to get here, right? So like I could totally see this being a 4-year contract. The other thing though on the money is, I also could see, and this would be correct, is the salary cap's going up a little bit exponentially now, right? So I not only want to beat Draisaitl, I want to surpass him pretty comfortably based on the fact that that your cap is going up. And on the free agency thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, did anybody, because we didn't, and it seems like a major blind spot for us and everyone else, why didn't we factor in the fact that with the cap going up, everybody who wanted to keep their star players was going to keep them, which is what happened, which is what could continue to happen. And so, yeah, like that 1C that we originally were like, oh, go get them on the market, right, Jessi? Like that didn't happen. And there's a case to be made. It won't unless somebody gets disgruntled. So it's going to have to be a trade. So I can see a lot of moving parts in Kaprizov's mind here, all of which would probably go towards, let's keep the contract shorter. I want to break the bank. But I also want you to prove that you can build not just a contender, a Stanley Cup contender, which I don't know that any of us think the Wild is right now.
devil's advocate. What if this is positive Pierce coming in here too? Imagine that. What if Kirill just doesn't want to sign because he's like, you know what? I'm over in Russia. I'm enjoying weddings. I am traveling. Judd's gonna just love this. He's just like, I'm enjoying my summer. I don't need to worry about this right now. I'm not going to. And that's why they're quote unquote far apart, because they're literally separated by continents and countries, and he's just enjoying his summer, and that's why they're not. It's not a pressing matter to him.
They meant it quite literally, like he's on the opposite side of the earth.
Right.
Realistically, couldn't be further apart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now that
maybe.
Oh yeah, that could definitely play a role. Play a role. I will say this though. So on the Daily Faceoff podcast, Russo brought up the length of the contract, and Mike tends to know things that I think he needs to sometimes sort of, doesn't need to, that he will just couch. Like the length of the contract thing, because I'm with you guys. One, I think it gets done, and two, he's going to get paid at the end of the day. But the length of the contract thing, I think, is a viable discussion. Like that makes, and that's going to get into the second part of our discussion here. That makes a lot of sense, because if I'm Kaprizov and he's what now, Jess? 27, 28. Okay, he's 28. I want some assurances that we're going to be, going for a cup here. Like we're going to be going hard for a cup. And let's be honest, haven't really seen that. I like, if I'm Kirill, I like it here. I like my teammates, but I think I want to see more of a, it's not that Bill Guerin does not want to win. I believe he does, but I want to see more of a direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it gets done. I think the divide, which is again why I hate when players just leave and are gone in different countries for their whole offseason. I'd like them to do business a little bit more here, personal thing. But anyway,
you only have a finite time to get married and get pregnant, and if you're an NHL player, that's why they all have the same birthdays and all have the same anniversaries for their kids, because they just have those moments. I'm just saying.
Can't you have those in, I don't know,
can't have them.
Canada,
can't do it.
U.S. Go to Canada and do it. I don't care where, but like at least. But anyway, so I do think that I do believe though, because the more I think about this, the one thing I don't, because originally I was like, well, he got hurt and that wasn't good and that might affect him. But then I thought, in covering the kid, and just tell me if you disagree with me here, I don't think he probably thinks like that. Like, I don't think he thinks, well, I got hurt, I better take the security. I think he thinks, I got hurt, but I worked my ass off. I'm really, really good. And I'm much more confident than some Zolgad guy who's worried about my lower body.
And I think that's like, it's always going to be in the back of our mind, because as Minnesota Wild fans, as Minnesota media folks, we've seen it happen time and time again. Marian Gaborik, and just these injuries mount up and keep resurfacing. Jonas Brodin, Jared Spurgeon, Joel Eriksson Ek. I mean, as of recency bias, in fact. So that's always going to be lingering in the back of our mind. I do think Kirill is back to healthy. We saw him in the playoffs bounce immediately back in. I don't think this is the same type of situation we had 2 seasons ago where he's coming in hurt. I think he went into the offseason healthy, plans to come back hungry, because I know, I'm sure he was pretty proud of how he was performing up until said injury. I want to pose this question to you guys then too. I don't need him to sign 8 years. I really don't. I don't need that longevity, right? Like, there have been very few instances where those contracts have panned out anyway, where it's like, all right, we locked him up for 8 years for X amount and it's going to be great. I mean, who cares, right? Like, I'm okay with 5 years. That gives you the security of being like, okay, you've got 5 years of Kirill Kaprizov. You can re-up again. You don't want to keep having these conversations, but frankly, I'm okay with it. From my perspective, I don't need the 8 anyway. I want more than 3. I want 5, maybe 6, but I don't need 8.
He might even be cheaper at 33 than he is,
right.
There is that question. Going back to what Judd said though, too, here, it does maybe raise a alarm in my head, because your comment about like Bill Guerin, I want to see more direction. It feels like, I don't know, if he's at the World Series of Poker, he's more just like throwing out the ante and he's staying in hands, but I don't think I see him like get, king off the deal, and then he's trying to go all in and win a pot. Like, I feel like he's doing enough to like be competitive, but he's not necessarily like pushing all in. And like Judd said, I don't see that clear driving lane. We know exactly where this train is headed. So do you guys differ from that, or am I just maybe being a little bit, it's August, it's almost August now, and I'm just getting too deep in the weeds of mindless NHL chatter?
That transition is just on a platter for
Yep.
that next
There-
conversation.
There you
Just-
go, Jessi.
I love it.
Bring it up.
We talked about this shameless plug on Bardown Beauties this week because, as you just mentioned, Age, we're almost heading into August and there's not much else to talk about, and I can't keep beating the same storyline. So I wanted to evaluate kind of how Bill Guerin has done, because I think if you hear from fans and they get so mad, oh, Billy didn't do anything this offseason, it's another year of blah, blah, blah. Billy's done just enough, right? I think in his whole tenure with the Minnesota Wild organization, he's done just enough. He's kept the fans engaged. He's made some good. Marc-Andre Fleury, I would point to that signing as a fantastic one, not just from a player standpoint, but a locker room standpoint, a fan base standpoint. I mean, how tremendous. You got 4 years of this Hall of Fame goalie, right? I mean, he's made good moves in his time, but it's just enough and never enough to get over that hump. It's very Minnesota passive aggressive, I feel like. I think that's how it's been. You're enough to get into the playoffs. It's fine. It's a response back in a text message with a K period. Like it's fine. It's a very C plus. I tried my best AJ there with a nice little, right?
I like it.
It worked.
Yeah, I think nothing has overly impressed me, but nothing has overly disappointed me either. I mean, again, recency bias this offseason. I'm glad he didn't go out and overspend. I'm fine with the Tarasenko. I am fine with Nico Sturm. I'm fine with it. And that's the whole thing about Bill Guerin. I have been fine with him, and I would love to be more excited about things, I think.
I think if the market had played out like, again, everybody thought it would, they would have signed someone.
Right.
But I mean, look at the amount of guys that just went back to starting with, if I'm correct on this, and this didn't excite me at a big price point, but supposedly Brock Nelson might come here, right? And then he just goes back to the Avs like 2 weeks before July 1st, so that's gone. And then Besser goes back. So I think there's just a natural disappointment, I think, around the league, because this was supposed to be this hallelujah, it's going to be exciting, and it was just a shrug. So, but as
Side
far
note,
as
fun fact, I want to interrupt. Besser changed his mind in the umpteenth hour, I have been told, is what happened.
and decided to go back?
Yeah, like
Based
it was
on
a
what?
very last minute. I'm not, and actually this comes from his agent, Ben Hankinson, who I adore. Go check out Beauty League. But yeah, he's like, yeah, he wasn't going to, and then just completely changed course and decided to go back and give it another go. It was just in passing conversation, so we didn't dive into the weeds on it, and I'm not reporting on it by any means. But
Well, it sounds like
yeah, I find that very interesting. That just changed his mind. I think it was as surprising to his agent as it was to everybody on the outside too.
Interesting.
But I think the whole thing is, so yeah, I mean, the Wild's done nothing wrong, but do I see them as being a much improved team right now? No. Now Billy now is saying that they've got the ammunition, obviously, to do more, and the salary cap space at the trade deadline. But again, those prices aren't cheap. Like the sticker shock of the deadline is a lot like potentially July 1st, which is, oh my God, what did you give up? So like all of those things are come back to your point, Jessi, which is like, do I think the Wild's going to be terrible or bad? No. Do I think they're a playoff team? Probably. A wild card team, perhaps. But what has really changed, and that goes back to your earlier point, which is this 5-year plan we found out about last fall or in training camp of last year. And like, where are you in that 5-year plan that's going to like get you up if it's a ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you taken a real step? Because I don't see it. I think you're sort of in the same place. And so your overall point on Bardown, I think, is dead on. He's done enough, but is this really an improved team? Like, have they taken steps? Is this 5-year plan ascending? Or are we just sort of in a holding pattern of, well, I hope in year 3 or year 4 that this is the year, and the answer to that is often no, it's not going to be.
Where does that leave his job security then, do you think? Right? Like that was my
Great
other
question.
Like he's done enough, and I think Craig Leopold is one of those guys where he likes to have guys like Bill Guerin around, right? Bill Guerin's a name and he's a personality too, and I think that's a large part of Leopold's attraction to Billy. And again, he hasn't done anything bad, really. There hasn't been any egregious. Yes, they missed the playoffs. You could point to that. That wasn't great. But oh well, we were strapped. We couldn't do anything. We were handicapped with this, and this, right? So I mean, there's always kind of an excuse waiting in the wings too. So it does, because general managers don't tend to have very long careers. They don't tend to have very long leashes. But I think Bill Guerin has been an exception with the Minnesota Wild.
I get more concerned about this. I get more concerned as well. I guess twofold is it's not just the roster construction moves, which again are fine. The Tarasenko thing. Here's why I'm worried about it, and this is my grand point about what worries me about this franchise. If Tarasenko's good, that's awesome. It's a great find. 11 goals last year, but he's an aging player. So if he struggles, does he get the Marcus Johansson treatment, which is, well, he's staying on the second line? Like the playoffs to me were a debacle as far as the decisions made that I would probably put on, unless we know more, you put that on John Hynes. But I thought the playoffs were a debacle. I thought the Rossi move was absolutely, and when Gaudreau didn't do crap and stayed on the third line, it's like, what are you doing here? And then the defensive moves, Zeev's out. Okay, cool. Who's in? John Merrill's in because he's our safety blanket. Well, that's not a good move. So like, this is what worries me is whatever the decisions are at the end of the day. So not from a 10,000 foot roster view, AJ, but more from a view of what are you doing to win games when it matters most? I think the Wild, I don't think John Hynes helped his team one bit with decisions on the roster for games and where guys played. I think he actually was, if we were to grade him as a plus minus, I think John Hynes was a minus in the playoffs, which you cannot afford from your coach. Bruce Cassidy was marvelous. Bruce Cassidy didn't hesitate to change things up. Some major moves. Guess what? They worked.
Yeah, and I mean, did the Wild go from a coach that's not scared, but just unwilling to change anything at all, to a coach that now doesn't want to put trust in certain players in the biggest moments of the season? Like, that's what you saw. Marco Rossi demoted. Zeev Buium, I think a lot of raw talent, but then after 2 games, you say, you know what? I'm going to put you back in the wings. John Merrill, get your butt back on the ice. And then in whatever, what was it, game 5 or whichever game it was, he drifts out of defensive positioning, overtime goal. Vegas wins that game. It's there is like a kryptonite. Not every coach is perfect, but there is glaring stuff where now in a short time under his Minnesota Wild tenure, you've seen now regular season, there's a lot good there, but when it got to the playoffs, he was very quickly like, okay, you see what's wrong with John Hynes.
Sound familiar? Look at both. Here's what I want. I want the next Wild coach, when I get the press release, right? When it ends up hot on my desk.
Start with the C?
Old school. No, here's what I want. I want to look at a guy who wins playoff series. Dean and John Hynes have one thing in common. Look at their playoff records. Look at their playoff records. And I mean, this is where playoffs are where coaching matters a ton, I think, Jessi. You go back to 2003. Why did the Wild win 2 series? I got one name for you, Jacques Lemaire. He schooled Granato against Colorado. He just schooled him up and down. Tony Granato didn't know what to do. And then I believe it was Mark Crawford, Jacques Lemaire with his system, with how he deployed guys. So that's where my concern is. The Wild needs to win in between the margins in the playoffs if they're going to win. And that's where they have no chance right now, in large part, I think, because of coaching.
I mean, to be fair, Tony Granato, wasn't he like a rookie coach at that point in time? Like,
but it
wasn't right. I'm thinking, right?
Yes.
I'd argue that John Hynes and Dean Evason both were like rookies in the postseason. Like, they just both don't know how to win there right now.
But they've been there too much to be rookies. That's the
yes.
To Jessi's point, she's right. Granato was new to the now. Okay. The thing about that is he had a roster full of Hall of Fame players and he still lost.
Right.
Which you have to work to do. But
you have to deploy the correct executions, right?
But like, yes. But anyway, so I guess my question to your point is, does the Wild have the right marriage of GM and coach here with this team to make this work when it matters most. Now, I'm not talking about making the playoffs. I'm talking about actually winning rounds of the playoffs. I feel like it's been a long time since the Wild, since you looked from the press box at the X, you looked at the coaches behind the bench, Jessi, and you said, advantage Minnesota.
I loved me some Bruce Boudreau, man. God, I did. I loved it. But that's the differences, and
that's true. I did like
my perception and my opinion on it is Bill Guerin has made hires in the coaching department for coaches that he can control a little bit more. He has, I do believe that he has more control over the lineup with the coaches that he's put in place with Dean Evson, because he's giving Dean a shot, right? With John Hynes, because he's giving John kind of a refreshed start. And again, not to discredit them, and I hate calling them puppets, right? But it feels a little bit that way, because I always do look at some of the roster movements and the lineups, and I question every single time who had that final lineup card, who actually made that decision to keep Freddie Gaudreau, who made the decision to put Marcus Johansson in there, right? Like, I can't help but wonder. Sometimes it just feels like it's a Bill Guerin thing. And maybe it's also because in my interactions, Dean, not as much, but with John comes off a little bit more timid sometimes, right? Like, not timid isn't the right word, because I don't want to make it a pushover, but it feels like, well, I don't know, Billy wants this guy in, so sure, we'll go with it and we'll figure it out and make it
He's
work.
more open to suggestions from outside sources.
Yeah, like, whereas I don't think Bruce Boudreau necessarily played that game, right? He's like, no, I'm not going to.
And you're right about Bruce,
I'm going to do that. Like, I think that was the last time you had that. And now, again, Bruce's time here was under a different general manager up until his firing, right? So that's my biggest question about the marriage, as you called it, between the coach and the GM is Bill Guerin putting the coaches in place that he can be the alpha male, this is my team type of situation.
Right. And again, I think the most important time is the springtime. Like you can see, like, you watch playoff series and you realize it's not just way more intense, but you like see what becomes important. Because I feel that, in January, I feel that there is a bunch of coaches that can coach then. Like, it's not like, oh man, this guy's a great January coach. Mm-hmm. But look at the subtle moves that help win playoff series. And it's pretty impressive what the best guys do. Like, that's tough. Yeah. Heck, it's probably not fair, but Peter DeBoer got fired because of the playoffs. And that guy's got a lot more of a playoff success resume than Dean did ever, or John Hynes did. But like, Dallas is like, you know what? I mean, when push came to shove, you were sort of a disaster. But that was like in what? The conference finals or second round?
You don't throw your franchise goalie under the bus.
Well, no, I agree. But,
right, like,
but
I
what
think
I'm saying is that guy's got a great track. Yeah, but you're right. But that guy's got a track record of success, and they still blew him out because of something like that. But I mean, I think that's the stress. The Gaudreau one interests me too, because was he kept on the third line because Billy told John Hynes, but then Billy was trying to trade him. He thought he had him traded to Columbus last. So
you're showcasing him that way, right? Like, make sure. Although then he makes the disaster move of Marco Rossi, right? Like, it's kind of
exactly
adapting. I do find it interesting. Do you guys see the Dean Evson recent news about Igor
Chinakhov?
Chinakhov requesting a trade because of lack of communication from Dino, which kind of surprises me, because his time here, I know he was very communicative with all of his players. And I know that's never going to be an issue with John Hynes, because I do think the same thing. Like, I think they take care. But I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I wonder if that's more of a player. I wonder if that's more of a personality thing between the two. Because, that doesn't seem like Dean had a problem with guys. And it certainly you have not alluded to, like, behind the scenes guys complaining and keeping it private.
No, I don't. Yeah.
So I wonder if that's more of a personality thing. But, I suppose the way that Dean does things wouldn't be for everyone. So it's not shocking. If it was multiple players, or like if this had been something that started here, then I think it's different. Yeah. And I suppose you could misinterpret. I mean, Dean does have the ability to melt down, like,
he's got a fiery side to him.
Yeah, so I wonder if that rubs some of the youth, some of the younger guys who are used to participation trophies, if they're like, "Whoa, why are you mad?" It's like, because you suck.
Oh, gross. Goddamn. What are we doing? No, come on now.
See, that's the other. It's your kids.
No, I tell my kids when they're being losers and when they're being winners.
You got to coach your kids.
They're going to be winners, obviously.
No participation trophies, kids. You're not going to. You know what? Unless you finish. If you don't finish first, we don't even want a trophy.
Hey, right now they just care about what ice cream sandwich they're getting at the end of the game, which is fine with me. That can be their participation trophy. And then we'll have the long car ride home where I'm like, you know what? You missed that double out. I am very disappointed. Yada yada,
Good for you, Mom. Good for you, Jessi Pierce.
Thank you.
All right, we are done. I do not know that we solved the world's problems, but certainly an interesting report on Kirill Kaprizov. So that was a good discussion. And hopefully the Wild begins to, I don't know, make some more exciting moves, does something, stands pat and makes the playoffs and goes out in the first round. I mean, up to you guys. Judd's Hockey Show. We'll see you next week.